Hello and welcome to the Criterion preview for December of the Year of Our Lord 2016. If you don't know what this series is, basically I just go through the Criterion collection releases for December. I do a very brief overview of the films, what's included in the releases, and my opinions on them. And then later on, if you wish, you're able to click on a link that will take you to a full video review of each film that I have done. Anyway, let's get straight into it. The first film here is Laurie Anderson's 2015 Heart of a Dog. It's a poetic documentary slash essay film from renowned multimedia artist Laurie Anderson, who is famously the wife of the late great Lou Reed. The film follows the life and death of Laurie Anderson's dog Lullabelle, combining this with dreamy ruminations on existence and Laurie's own life experiences. If you've seen any Chris Marker films like Sans Soleil or Level 5, this is very much in the same ballpark as those. It's a very personal and profound insight into Laurie's life, and it's only 75 minutes long, which makes it very, very easy to recommend. Overall, I give this a heart out of 100, I suppose, which basically means I just find the film a little too abstract to give a numerical value for, and you're going to be hearing that a lot with the other films I'm talking about here. This Criterion release includes a high-definition remaster of the film and 5.1 surround sound audio. There's also an alternate version of the film that doesn't include music, and I'm not exactly sure what the reason is for that, but okay. It's also some deleted scenes, a conversation between Laurie Anderson and co-producer of the film Jack Perlin, an essay from the film critic Glenn Kenny, and footage of Laurie's 2016 quote-unquote concert for dogs. I have no idea what this is, but it sounds amazing. You can find my full review of the film here or in the description of this video. Next up, we have The Exterminating Angel from 1962. This film comes from the extraordinarily influential avant-garde surrealist Spanish director Luis Buñuel, and this film really kind of cemented the style of film that Buñuel would make for the rest of his career, with this film kind of starting his trend of satirizing and critiquing socialite bourgeoisie people with a fascination of dinner parties, with this film following similarly a group of bourgeois socialites who, for whatever reason, find themselves absolutely unable to leave a dinner party. After finding themselves trapped, they begin to devolve into savagery, and you kind of see their true colors come out, which is where a lot of the class commentary and satire comes out as well. I absolutely love this film, and I think I need to watch it about 3 more times to kind of completely wrap my head around it. It's not extremely complex in terms of plot, but there are just so many minute and just brilliant directorial decisions that I think you just can't really, comprehend them all, especially on the first watch. In terms of scoring, yeah, it's another heart. It's just too abstract to kind of give a numerical rating to, and in that regard, this film is really not going to be for everybody. A lot of people just not kind of clicking with it or finding it just really boring. If you're in that boat but you still want to see a Buñuel film, I would highly recommend checking out The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, which I believe is on Criterion on DVD. That film is far more accessible than this one is, and it's also very similar to Exterminating Angel. In fact, I'd almost call it like a quasi-remake of that film. This release includes a high-definition transfer and uncompressed mono-aural soundtrack for the Blu-ray, which is really funny considering that this film has no soundtrack. None. And somehow it works, I don't know. There's also a 2008 documentary titled The Last Script, Remembering Luis Buñuel, and a booklet with an essay from film scholar Marsha Kinder and an interview with Buñuel from the 70s. As always, you can find my review of the film here or in the description of this video. Next up is the 1950 film The Asphalt Jungle. Yet again, we have another very famous and influential director, John Huston, who you may know directed, The Maltese Falcon, The African Queen, Treasure of Sierra Madre. You may also know him as Noah Cross from Polanski's Chinatown, and I am still amazed that that's even a thing. It's kind of incredible. Now, Criterion has released some later Huston films, but this is kind of the first one from his glory days around the 40s and 50s. It basically follows the story of a jewelry heist gone wrong and is very much the inspiration for Kubrick's The Killing, even to the point that it shares the lead actor Sterling Hayden. It's also notable that The Killing was a major inspiration for Reservoir Dogs. This film also features Marilyn Monroe in one of her very, very early performances, and it's funny because all of the film posters involving this film show her very prominently. In fact, I think she's top billed, but she actually has quite a small role here. Basically, this is just a really cool little heist film, some great characters. It kind of pioneered that style of focusing more on the sort of people that would commit something like a heist as opposed to the heist itself. Plus, I am just an absolute sucker for heist movies. I love them. This is pretty accessible to almost everyone, I suppose, if you're even remotely comfortable with 50s and 40s American movies. It's just a fun, really well-made movie in the same kind of style as The Maltese Falcon, of course. Overall, it's an 83 out of 100 from me. I like it a lot. This release also includes a 2K digital restoration, audio commentary from film historian Drew Casper, interviews with film noir historian Eddie Muller and the cinematographer for the film John Bailey. Also includes archival footage of John Huston discussing the film, a documentary about the actor Sterling Hayden, who I mentioned prior, called Pharos of Chaos, an episode of City Lights, which is a British comedy show which had an episode featuring John Huston. Honestly, I have no idea what this is or why it's here. The IMDb page for City Lights has like no poster, no summary, no nothing, so I'm not really sure what's up with that, but okay. There's also archival audio from John Huston and an essay by the film critic Geoffrey O'Brien. As always, you can find my review of the film here or in the description of this video. Next up is the 1972 film Roma from, well, I don't think Fellini really needs an introduction at this point. One of the most famous, influential filmmakers ever, and certainly the most famous Italian filmmaker. This film really exaggerates his somewhat dreamy kind of fantastical style and places it somewhere between 8.5, which is somewhat grounded, and Satyricon, which is just not grounded at all. It's a very loosely autobiographical film about Fellini's childhood and traveling to Rome and kind of his impression of the descent almost into madness in going into Rome and the decadence and the corruption and almost the horror of being there. And it's kind of exaggerated to this almost Jodorowsky Holy Mountain level of surrealism. And in saying that, I would say that this film very, very heavily inspired the Holy Mountain. While it isn't as surreal or as absurd as that film, it definitely has echoes in it, but it's still grounded in kind of Fellini's Italian style and perspective. Basically, I absolutely love this film. I'll probably have to see it a couple of more times before I really cement it as my favorite of his, but at the moment it's basically tied at first place with La Strada. And yet again, I'm just giving this film a heart. It's far too abstract and loose to rate, and it's kind of weird that I've had 3 films this month that are like that are almost difficult to review in that sense, and that they're so personal in their meaning and so abstract and loose in terms of their structure. This wouldn't be the first Fellini I'd recommend checking out. I'd probably look at his other stuff first. Obviously, 8.5 and La Dolce Vita are a must, even if you don't like them. And then I'd say it's probably easier to jump straight into this. I know that this will alienate some people, even though it isn't, that extreme in terms of craziness, but Also, this actually being on Criterion is fantastic. I mean, the film is just so visually stunning, and so I'm always happy seeing just these beautiful looking films revamped and just being able to see them kind of as you would have in a theater, I suppose, in just the highest quality possible at this point. This release includes a 2K digital restoration, audio commentary from Frank Burt, who is the author of a book titled Fellini's Films, which I've heard is very good. There's some deleted scenes, an interview with Paolo Sorrentino on the lasting influence of Fellini. If you don't know, Sorrentino directed The Great Beauty, which is quite critically acclaimed, and also on Criterion, as well as the film Youth, which I hate so much. There's also an interview with Fellini's friend Valerio Margrelli, who I believe is a poet, new English subtitles, and an essay by the scholar David Forgax. I believe I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. You can find my full review of the film here or in the description of this video. And that's it for the releases this month. So now we move on to the cutting block, which is basically where I'll just be giving kind of my personal recommendations for what I'd consider picking up in the future and kind of the strengths and weaknesses, I think, of each film that's being released. And on that point, in terms of strengths and weaknesses, honestly, I would pretty much pick up any one of these films. I'd have to say that Roma and Exterminating Angel are definitely my favorites from this month, but all of the films here are great and are definitely welcome additions to the collection. Heart of Dog is beautiful, but honestly, if you had to, I would just say pick Sans Soleil, just one of the best films ever made. And while Heart of a Dog is fantastic, it's kind of an inferior version of Sans Soleil in my mind. Doesn't mean it's not worth checking out, obviously, but I definitely check out Sans Soleil over Heart of a Dog. In contrast to that, Exterminating Angel, Asphalt Jungle, Roma are such unique films and such beautiful films. I think Roma and Exterminating Angel in particular will just look beautiful with cleanups. Basically, I just love anytime Criterion releases films from famous directors. Obviously, Laurie Anderson, I think Heart of a Dog is actually her first foray into film, but getting anything from, Fellini, Buñuel, John Huston, some of the most famous foreign and American filmmakers just ever. It's just wonderful and kind of what I would see as what Criterion is about. Releasing these not so famous films from famous directors that are just hidden gems, essentially. Obviously, these films aren't obscure per se, but they're definitely not as well known as, their huge masterpieces like Maltese Falcon, 8½, or perhaps Un Chien Andalou. But if I could only pick one to take, I think it would have to be Roma. I'm very interested to see it cleaned up and just in a beautiful, 2K format, essentially. Though, as I said again at the beginning, any of these films is worth picking up. I would highly recommend all of them, but my personal pick would be Roma. And that's it for this month. These are still coming out a little bit late, but the December one should be coming out, I think, before all of the films are. If you've seen my upload schedule for this month, it's been absolutely ridiculous. I've got another 4 or 5 reviews underway. So I think this will be the last video I have before Christmas. So Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays if I want to be super duper PC, but fuck that shit, yo. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Indulge in your disgusting capitalistic desires and shy away from revolting against the shackles of modernity. And yeah, that's it. Check out these other videos. I don't know what they are, but they're probably good. Yeah. Okay, anyway, goodbye.